Hello. Today I'd like to talk a little bit about my LS tractor. I've had it now for 6 months and I've put 300 hours on it. And I'd just like to take a little bit of time to talk about the mods I've done to it that have helped me out a lot. So I'll go ahead and show those and talk about them, and then maybe just a few other things that I think are really important when buying a tractor, or at least have been really important to me. Okay, so my tractor is an LS MT235HE. It's 35 horsepower. It's the MT2 is the series from LS, and it is hydrostatic. This is a tractor that's made in Korea. One of the things, I guess they say Koreans are short. I think that's my observation as well. And I am over 6 feet tall. And so one of the first issues I had, I noticed even just driving around a little bit at the parking lot for the dealer, was that I sat really low in it. I mean, really low. Like my knees were bending up and I had to reach really high to get to the pedals. So one of the first modifications I did to the tractor was to raise the seat and lower the pedals. So I'll go ahead and show you how I did that now. Okay, so the first thing I did was to raise the seat. I got it tipped up right now because it's misting. Should keep it a little drier. And the way I did that is I literally undid the seat bolts and I added these spacers. You can see there's 4 bolts. I ended up adding 2 spacers per bolt. I was looking for spacers where I could just add 1 spacer per bolt, but I couldn't find any that were tall enough. And so I ended up raising it. I think this is just over 3 inches. They're probably 1.5 inch spacers each. So I raised this seat by 3 inches, and it has made an incredible difference for me. Again, I'm about 6 feet 3 inches tall, and when I sit in this, you can watch some of the other videos when I sit in this, but it actually still looks like my legs go uphill just slightly. I guess I probably wouldn't want to sit any higher on this. It might make me feel a little bit top heavy, but 3 inches was about perfect for me. 4 inches would have been okay for me, but then the rest of my family would have started to have a really hard time reaching all the controls and the steering wheel and everything else. Even though the seat slides forward, just that additional height makes it a little bit harder for the rest of my family. So this 3-inch raise was ideal for us. To go along with raising the seat, I adjusted the pedals. Typically when you buy this tractor, the pedals come, way up here. I think I cut about 3 inches off of the pedals as well. I was having to lift my foot way up. I was already low from the seat, and then I was having to lift my foot way up to get on top of those pedals. And so I literally just took a Sawzall and cut them off. And then I bought these metal plates, just as sheet metal or straight metal from a department store. And I rounded off the corners and welded them on there and then painted them, and looks like I'm gonna need to paint them again. And to give me even just a little bit more room, I took off the orange pads that just made them even just a smidge lower. The thing I checked for was that when I depressed them all the way, that the bottom of the pad wouldn't touch the bottom of the foot pad wouldn't touch this touch the bottom of the tractor here, the platform. And I checked on both of them. This one comes a little closer, you can see, but doesn't quite touch. So that's what I measured for when I cut them. I want them to be as low as possible. So that was the second mod I did, along with raising the seat. I lowered the foot pedals, which made it incredibly more comfortable to drive. Okay, another mod to talk about while we're talking about the foot pedals. I noticed that when driving the tractor backwards, I drive at idle. I just run the tractor at idle. I think it's way better for the tractor. And with the hydrostatic and the gear selectors, I hardly ever need more power than that. And so I drive the tractor at idle, and I noticed when I drive in reverse that I hardly went anywhere. And it's not that this tractor doesn't have any power in reverse. It actually has the same kind of power depending on your gear in reverse as forward. It is simply a matter of fact that they set this tractor up to drive slower in reverse than forward. You can see here is the reverse stop and here is the forward stop, and you can literally see they're about 1 inch different in travel. In other words, the LS company wanted you to go slower backwards, and that makes sense. And if I were to rev up my engine, I would probably go backwards as fast as I would like. However, for me, in my situation, I like to drive slower. So the way I fixed that, instead of breaking this weld and trying to re-weld it on higher, which my welding isn't great, I simply went and tapped down or hit this with a wood dowel and a hammer to make it just a little bit bent down. And you can see it's just a little bit more bent down than the forward. And now I can get the backward speed that I need at idle. So that would be the other mod I did with the foot pedals. Okay, one of the other mods I did, I added these rings and the blue hooks to the axles. There was this nice cast part of the tractor right here, and so I added these on both the sides of the front. I added one there, and I added one here, and this makes it super easy for me to chain down my tractor on my trailer. I simply drive up onto the trailer or back on, and then I attach the chains there and then back up to tighten them up, and then I use the ratcheting straps on the back, and that does a really nice job of tying down my tractor, binding it up. I also added this ring on the back, which I also use to attach the binders to in the back, and then between that point back there and the 2 points up front, it's really quick and easy to load my tractor. I can get my tractor loaded on my trailer and bound up in less than 5 minutes. So to me, that's an advantage. So one of the other things I ran into is every time I would try to change the implement on the back of my tractor, I would need to really wiggle it around. I don't have quick attach. I don't really like the quick attach. Seems to me like it's a little bit of a weak point. I want the things to be attached directly to the tractor, as strong as it can be. When I would try to attach all my implements, I'd always have to move them around a little bit, especially the ones where the attachments stick out. You know, the box gripper here is nice because the pins go through, but the ones where the pins are permanently attached, a little bit harder to get the tractor onto it, and you gotta move it around. And so I always found myself needing a hammer or a small maul, and I never had it with me, and I had to go get it. And so what I did is I took one of the things on the tractor. I'm not sure what it was originally for, but it was already there to hold something. I don't know what. And I changed its shape just a little bit so that it would hold this maul. And now I always have a hammer on me for any situation on the tractor, whether it's to change an implement or if I'm out and about doing anything and need a hammer, it is right there, no problem. Okay, in the seat area, just want to mention really quick, I did unplug the seat to make sure that it's the plug that makes sure that you are in your seat while driving the tractor. This was just my personal preference. Obviously, this is something that you have to decide for yourself. I found myself needing to stand up while operating the tractor in order to see exactly where the tip of the fork were. And if I did that with that plug operating the way it came from the manufacturer, it would literally shut down the tractor, and that's not any good. I understand it's an important safety feature. I just don't think it works the best for me. At first I had jumped. You can see the wire right there with the just being connected together with the twist on wire cap. That's how the system tells whether or not you're sitting in it. If it sends a signal, it means you're sitting there. If it doesn't send the signal, it thinks that you're not sitting there. At first I left the plug on, the other end to that plug. I left it on and jumped across it. And obviously that was just an open connection to the weather, and eventually it got corroded in there a little bit, and I would have to mess with it, often to get it to think that I was still sitting in the seat. And so I cut it off and put a wire nut around it so that it would always think I'm sitting in the seat. And that's how I dealt with that situation. I know everybody has to deal with that situation on their own. If that's a safety feature that you desire, you need to leave that on. Another mod I had done was I had these rear remotes put on. I did not do this myself. I knew when I bought the tractor that I would want rear remotes. I figured that 2 remotes would be way better than 1. And so I had these 2 rear remotes put on. When I ordered the tractor, the dealer that I bought it from literally did it. It wasn't near as expensive as I thought it would be. He did a nice job. He color coded the caps so that I know that the green caps are run by the green lever and the blue caps are run by the blue lever. Afterwards, another dealer up by the property I bought the backhoe from added the detent to the blue cap, and so the blue remote system is now detented and the green system is not. One thing I could do with the green system besides run things off the 3-point that would require a rear remote is I could also run some hoses up here, maybe underneath the tractor up to this point, and add a bracket here, and then that would be an additional remote for the forks or for the front of the tractor. Say I ever wanted to get a grapple or something like that, I wouldn't have to add that remote. I could simply add the hoses and use the remote that's already on the tractor. I could just use this green one and run the hoses down the tractor all the way to here, maybe a bracket, and then have them connect to the front. And then I would just have to use this green lever here while riding the tractor, and that would be a really nice way to work a front remote. The last mod I have to talk about with the tractor is when I bought this tractor, it is an MT. So it is the base model, I guess. The XJs or whatever they're called are the more luxurious models that come with the extra options. But the base model I have here did not come with a second step. On this side, it was just a drop off. And we found ourselves a lot of times wanting to get on and off the tractor on this side. And so for, I think, something like 45 bucks, I had the dealer, and there's the dealer right there. I had the dealer up by me go ahead and put on this additional step. It looks identical to the step that came with the tractor on the other side. It simply has different colored bolts. Maybe his bolts are higher graded. I don't even know, it doesn't matter. Let's see if we can focus there. So this is the original, and on the other side of the tractor is the one I had added on, and we love this extra step. World of difference. Definitely recommend this. Okay, so those are some of the mods I've done to the tractor. I just want to say a few things about buying a tractor in general. My experience, I have 300 hours on this tractor. Backhoe, a lot of attachments. One thing I would definitely recommend is to get a loader for your tractor. I would never buy, there's a few things I would never buy a new tractor without. So I would never buy a new tractor without a loader, and I would never buy a new tractor without forks to go on that loader, and I would never buy a new tractor that's not hydrostatic. It's ridiculous to buy a tractor that isn't hydrostatic these days. So many people then can drive the tractor, and it makes a lot more things, especially if you're going to be using a loader. Trying to use a clutch with a loader is ridiculous, or with a pair of forks. Yes, guys think that they're more manly by being able to drive with a clutch. That's not the point, okay? I would never buy a tractor without those things. The rear remote has been very nice. I wouldn't say that I wouldn't buy a tractor without the rear remote, but I definitely recommend the rear remote. And so those are the things that I would not buy a tractor without. I would also not buy a brand new tractor without four-wheel drive. Absolutely not. Just the conditions on the property here have taught me that anytime you get into mud with a tractor, if you don't have four-wheel drive, you're not going to be able to do any work. You might be able to drive through the mud, but you're not going to be able to work at all. And what's the point of having a tractor if you can't work? And so you definitely need four-wheel drive on a tractor if you're going to buy a new one. I understand if your budget doesn't allow you to buy a new one, you're going to have to buy what your budget allows. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying if you can afford to buy the tractor you want, I wouldn't buy a tractor without four-wheel drive. Okay, so there are my thoughts about the LS tractor. I absolutely love my LS tractor. It is the 35 horsepower hydrostatic tractor. The 25, the MT2, the 25 horsepower tractor has the exact same frame and weighs almost the same. It actually weighs a little bit less because the motor is just a little bit smaller. I can see some situations where it would be better for me to not have as much weight on the front wheels. I do tend to get stuck in mud when I have the front end loader loaded, and it has a hard time getting out. So I need to always make sure I have adequate ballast on the back of my tractor so that it can climb out of mud with a load. But even still, sometimes I have to dump the load and try and go at it from a different angle if I'm in the mud. Soft soil, same thing, but not quite as bad. But soft soil definitely has trouble getting out without ballast, and so that's probably the one deficiency. And I think that just has to do with the front tires being on the egg tires there on the front being so small. I'm sure they had reasons why they did that. It just makes it, they're so thin that it just doesn't have any can't hold any weight in the mud, and so as soon as I load that front end up, it sinks into the mud, and that's been one of my issues. Absolutely love the tractor though. Dealer's been great. They've taken care of I had actually one other issue. The locking differential went bad on it. I was driving in the mud a lot and using it a lot, and it skipped a gear once and wouldn't catch anymore after that. Replaced it on the warranty, no problem. But otherwise the tractor has been wonderful. So I definitely recommend the LS tractor. I think it is probably at this point, it's probably your best bang for your buck, would be my opinion. That is why I bought it. I probably would have paid double to get everything done that I got on it now to do a high name brand like a Kubota or a John Deere. And so that to me is pretty ridiculous, considering that it's doing everything that those tractors do. I've heard somebody else say this, and I would definitely agree with it. Your tractor is only as good as your implements, and so I would recommend spending that money. Instead of paying for a name brand tractor, I would take that extra money and buy more implements. So I hope you enjoyed watching this. Go ahead and subscribe and smash that notification bell. That way you don't miss any posts. We are going to have some exciting posts coming up soon, and hope you don't miss those. So go ahead and do that, and thanks for watching.